Thank you all so much for joining. My name is Jessica. I am a volunteer with Marine Mammals of Maine. I've been with them for just about 4.5 years now. And what I do for them, I am a wildlife educator full-time. That's what I do for work. And so I got involved with them as they needed some help getting some educational materials out into the public so that more people were aware of this organization and the need they fill in the state of Maine here. Now, Marine Mammals of Maine, what I do with them is not just education, but I also am on their response team. I will go and assess animals, and I also help with animal care for the animals that are at their wildlife hospital. Now, Marine Mammals of Maine is a nonprofit organization, and it's kind of a mouthful, Marine Mammals of Maine, so we shorten it to MMoME, which sort of spells mommy. So if you hear me say mommy, that's just a shorthand for the longer title. We are a nonprofit organization founded by Linda Doty about 10 years ago now. What we used to do was we worked with the MARC Center, Marine Animal Rescue Center, that was part of UNE. We would be the response team, and then we would transport animals that were in need of care, marine mammals in particular, to the MARC Center for their long-term or short-term care. But abruptly in 2014, the MARC Center shut down. And it was during the busiest weekend of our season, which is Memorial Weekend. And so our staff was triaging animals like in their driveway, just trying to find ways to provide care to these animals when they had nowhere to take them. So Linda knew that we had to get rehab for marine mammals back in Maine since that organization shut down. So in 2016, MMoME opened the first and only triage center of its kind on the East Coast. What that meant was they partnered with outside organizations in Massachusetts and Connecticut, and they would transport animals down to those centers. But as you can imagine, an animal that doesn't feel very well doesn't really want to go on a road trip. So the success rate of them surviving the transport wasn't as high as we would like it to be. So we opened the triage center, and what happened was we were permitted through NOAA to have these animals for 4 days. We could have these animals for 4 days to provide critical care to these animals to stabilize them in order for them to successfully make that transport to long-term care facilities. Now, we knew that we didn't want to just stop there, so we did create and end up getting long-term care permits just a few years ago. So we now are licensed for triage as well as rehabilitation of marine mammals. We do keep some long-term. Now, marine mammals are things like seals and whales and dolphins and porpoises, but we also respond to sea turtles as well. We are the only organization permitted in Maine to respond to sea turtles. Believe it or not, we do have sea turtles off the coast. They don't usually come up onto shore here, but they're off the coast. They come up in the Gulf Stream and head up this way. So a lot of times if we're responding to a sea turtle, it might be one that's entangled off the coast. But at our hospital, the patients that we're getting in are seals. You can probably imagine it's really challenging to try to rescue a whale, anything of that size. So we are successful with seals. Now we can go ahead and go to the next slide, and I'll show you some of the pillars of our organization. We do provide response. We run a 24-hour hotline where people can let us know if they have seen an animal on the beach, whether it's alive or not. We want to know about it. We will respond. We have volunteers that are trained, and we have 3 staff members that are really great at assessing these animals and figuring out if they're in need of help or if they are doing just fine and can be left alone. We also provide care to the animals that need it. So at our animal hospital, which is located in Brunswick, We provide care to any seals that are in need of it. We have limited spaces though for our permits, so we have to be really critical of what animals come in and what animals are not able to. We also still continue to transport animals out of state to long-term care facilities on the East Coast that we are not able to keep in-house. We also provide a lot of research. So I mentioned if we get a call about a deceased animal, we want to know about that, and we will respond and get data from that animal so that we can track any patterns that are happening, learn more about what's going on in the population, and we provide a lot of samples to research that's going on all around the country. And then of course we also do education like this. So we're finding that a lot of our cases year after year are due to negative human interaction. That means are humans kind of doing something that they weren't supposed to do. And that's just because they didn't know. They didn't know what to do, and maybe they did the wrong thing. So we're trying to provide as much education as we can so people understand what to do if they come across one of these animals, how to interact with them, or how not to interact with them. So that is one of the main goals of our work right now, is really spreading the word on what to do and what not to do. And we're going to dive in a little bit to that. But going to the next one, we'll look here at, yeah, I think we may have missed one. Can you go back one more? Awesome, thank you. So we cover 2,500 miles of the Maine coastline. So we are responsible from down by the Huall and Kittery area up to Rockland. So I mentioned we have 3 staff members full-time, 1 seasonal, and then we have about 60 volunteers strategically placed up and down the coast that are trained to respond to these animals as well. Now, the rest of the coastline is covered by the College of the Atlantic. They run an organization called Allied Whale up in Bar Harbor. They respond to the animals north of Rockland, but if any of them come in for care, they come to us because we are the only center here in Maine that is permitted to care for these animals. All right, now we can go to that next one, and we're going to look at the kinds of animals that we usually respond to. So jumping right along to the pinnipeds. So pinnipeds are a group of marine mammals that the word pinniped actually means flipper foot. So these are seals, sea lions, and walruses. Now we don't have any sea lions off the coast of Maine. They are more on the west coast. Sea lions are considered to be eared seals because they have an outer ear flap that our seals do not have. Our seals off the coast are true seals. They just have an opening in their head for their ears. And true seals cannot use their flippers, their back flippers, to walk around on the rocks like sea lions can. So these animals do more of a belly bounce. The technical word for this is galumphing. And I think that just comes from the sound we would imagine that makes, just glump, glump, glump down the beach. So they use their bellies to bounce around on the beach. Now let's go to the next one here. This is one of our patients from a couple of years ago. This is a harbor seal. So this is a pup, it's a young one. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but seals are semi-aquatic. That means that they do not spend all of their time on land or all their time in the water. They split their time between both. So a seal out of the water is not a cause for alarm. They get out of the water to rest, to warm up their bodies. Lots of times they travel really far distances, so they just need a break. So when our patients usually are younger ones, and when they come into us, they are not yet chunky enough to survive in the cold ocean for very long. So they have to gain weight. They have to get blubber on their bodies. Their fur is not very thick, but their blubber is. So they have to graduate into longer water times. We do give them supervised swim time as babies. And then as they graduate and get bigger, they move into more and more access to the water. But as long as they are progressing in the way that they should. And I should say, if any of you have questions, feel free to use the Q&A section. I'll keep an eye on that, or the chat, whatever you feel like you'd like to use. And we'll move on to the next picture there. Just another one of our patients. We got a couple of these. So this is another harbor seal. You can see those really big whiskers. Their whiskers help them to find their food really well in the water. There's a seal that has been living off the coast of Rockland for over a year who somehow ended up missing both of his eyes, and he has been doing just fine. He finds his food with his whiskers. And you can tell with this one too that their nose is closed. When their nose is at rest, it's closed so they don't get water up their nose as they're swimming. And then when they're out of the water, they can use muscles to open those noses. Now let me show you the different species of seals that we have off the coast. There are 4 of them. The first one in this next picture are the ones we've been talking about a little bit, the harbor seals. Most likely, if you've seen a seal off the coast, it's going to be a harbor seal. They are here all year. They have their babies on the beaches or on rocks in May and June. They spend about 3 to 4 weeks with their moms before they venture off on their own. Now they are kind of gray and spotty, which a lot of seals are, but if you look at the nose, it has a very short, kind of like dog-like nose. And then if we go to the next one, this one's face is going to be a little bit different. This is the gray seal. Although gray and spotty, the biggest difference is they have a long horse-like snout and their eyes are a little bit wider apart, usually a bit darker. Gray seals are here all year round too. They don't venture onto the beaches quite as much. They spend a lot of time on the rocks offshore. They give birth on Seal Island off the coast in the winter time. They're giving birth early in the beginning of the year. And they stay with their parents or their mother for just a couple of weeks, and then they're on their own. Now the next 2 are ones that visit just in the winter time. They're not here year round. This is a harp seal. So I like to consider these the National Geographic seals because any picture you've ever seen in National Geographic of a cute, fluffy baby seal, those are harp seals. They are born in the Arctic. They are born with that fluffy layer of fur that our harbor seals are not born with. Our gray seals are, because they're born in the winter. Our harbor seals are not. We are aware of harbor seals being born prematurely if they have that fluffy white coat. That means they were premature. They usually shed that in utero before they're born. But the harp seals, they need that thick fur until they get big enough and get their blubber. Then as a juvenile, they look similar to a harbor seal. Sometimes they're hard to tell apart. And then as an adult, they have that white body, that dark face, and that dark harp-shaped design on their back. They get really large too. They visit just in the winter time. It's a lot warmer here in the winter than where they live, believe it or not. And they follow the snow and ice down usually. They love to eat ice and snow to stay hydrated. And something that happens with these animals when they come into us in the wintertime a lot is they've been approached too closely by people. And when they get stressed out, they start to eat, trying to eat ice and snow. And if there's no ice and snow around, they'll end up eating rocks and sand, and then they have a bellyache and they need some help. So we do have a law called the Marine Mammal Protection Act, and that says you are to stay 150 feet away from all marine mammals, whether on land or in the water. Now, 150 feet, we've been practicing staying 6 feet apart from everybody lately, but 150 is a lot. It's hard to imagine exactly what that space looks like. It's about half of a football field. Or I like to do the thumb test. If I can hold up my thumb, close one eye, and cover the animal and not see it, that means I'm far enough away. If I can't cover the animal, or the animal is responding to me being right there, then I'm too close. And we don't want to stress these animals out. And sometimes they don't always show when they're stressed. Once in a while, they'll wave their flippers at people, and people think like, oh, it's cute, it's waving at me. That's actually a warning saying, please stay away. Now, our last one of the 4 that visit, These are the hooded seals. These are not quite as common as the other three, but we have had them here and there. Hooded seals, I think the little one, the juvenile up in the top, looks a bit like an alien. I call them the alien seals. They have really big eyes for the size of their face. And then as they grow up, they get that darker face. And the males actually have this big nose balloon that blows up from their nose to attract the females, apparently. Now, these hooded seals are the mammals with the shortest nursing period. They nurse milk from their mothers for only 3 to 5 days, and then they are on their own. They have the shortest nursing period of any mammal, and that's mostly because they're born with their teeth, and all of their teeth are very sharp, so they can't really nurse from their mom for too long. All right, let's go ahead and move to the next one, and we'll look at another group of animals that we respond to. We will also take calls for cetaceans. Cetaceans are the groups that are dolphins, porpoises, and whales. Now, although seals are semi-aquatic, whales definitely are not. So they are not meant to be out of the water. If they are, that already means that there's something very wrong. And most of the time when we end up with a call for one of these larger animals, they're not alive anymore or not for very long. So mostly what we do for responding to these animals is we collect as much data as we can. We will take it to a private site. We do a necropsy, which is an autopsy on an animal. We will look at everything going on, trying to figure out what happened to this animal and what's going on out there. And then that a lot of samples that we take go to studies all over the country and sometimes the world. Now, these animals, we have successfully helped in rehabilitated one harbor porpoise many years ago. He was affectionately named Noodle, and Noodle was stabilized by Marine Mammals of Maine and then transferred to a site out of state. That one harbor porpoise, it was in care for several months. It was successfully released back into the ocean, which was super exciting, but it cost $20,000 to rehabilitate that harbor porpoise. Now, we hate to put a number on an animal because we want to save all of them that we can. But because this work is not funded by the government or anything else other than grants and donations, it's really hard to be able to respond to these larger animals and be able to save them. A lot of times they're too far gone, and we have to do the best we can with the information we get from them. So although we'd love to save every single animal, we are not always able to. So let's go on to our next one just for a quick second. We are going to talk about what you should do if you find a stranded animal. Now, the next slide, there are a lot of words on it. Please don't feel like you need to read it. I'm going to do a quick synopsis of what it says. And actually, we'll just skip to the next picture, and I can summarize this one with these pictures. So things to do if you come across a marine mammal or a sea turtle on the beach is the first step is to call us. We want to know about any animal on the beach. We will send someone as soon as we can get them there to assess the animal and to diffuse any situations going on. That top picture, you can see a large group of people. And if you look at, there's a gentleman in the middle with black shorts on and some blue shorts next to him. But right in front of the person with black shorts on is a baby on the beach. So this baby seal is surrounded by all these potential predators and doesn't know what to do. Sometimes that can force a baby into the water when it doesn't want to be in the water because they're not used to the cold yet. What happens is their moms will go out looking for fish for themselves, and they can't take the baby because the baby can't survive the cold water yet. So they will leave them on the rocks and they say, hey, you stay right here, I'm going to be right back. So the baby listens, it stays where it was put and waits for the mom to come back. But then, of course, us humans, we love baby animals so much that when we see one that we think is abandoned or needs help, we tend to intervene, even though that is not the best approach for these animals. So if all these people were here, when the mom pops up to come back to the baby, she's going to see all of those potential predators and she's going to leave. And that means that baby who's dependent on her milk is going to be left alone and will not survive without its mom. That's when we have to step in. So if we get a call about a pup, a baby seal on the beach, we monitor that animal for up to 24 hours, giving mom a chance to come back. We do not relocate them because mom has to be able to find them. We try to keep people away and educate the public that's coming by and seeing them. And then if they're still left after 24 hours, that is critical time that we need to get them in and give them some fluids and stabilize them. Now, of course, we just talked about 150 feet away, so you can tell some of these people are not following that rule. They might not even know about it, but it's safe to say that most people should know that you should never approach a wild animal and touch it, whether you want a photo or not. You have no idea what goes on inside that animal's body when it's stressed, and a lot of times those animals do not survive that encounter due to that stress. Also, if a seal is out of the water, it wants to dry off. It wants to warm up. We don't have to dump water on it or push it back into the water or put a blanket over it. It's doing just fine. They can regulate their own body temperature, so they're doing what they need to do. We also don't have to offer any water to it, or I know this might sound silly, but this has been done. They don't drink soda. They don't eat hot dogs. They don't eat a fish sandwich from McDonald's. All of those things have been, people have tried to feed to our seals, but they eat fish. They can go back in the ocean and get their fish when they want to. Also, someone like pulled one around on a boogie board, or we've had someone put the one in their kayak. That just causes a lot of stress. Also, if you find an animal that might be caught in some, like this bottom picture, this animal is alive, but it's caught in some monofilament. If you see anything wrapped around that animal, if it's not cutting off their breathing, the best thing you can do is leave it there and wait for the professionals to show up. A lot of times we see people try to rip those things off the animal, and then that wound is open and they are susceptible to infections. So we have to remove it carefully while cleaning it and giving them disinfectant baths, trying to make sure that these animals are getting the best care they can. So calling the hotline is the best thing to do. We always have someone there as quick as we can, and they will take care of that animal, or they'll make sure people leave it alone. If it's an animal just resting, they'll make sure people leave it alone. Sometimes in the next picture, you'll see a little sign that we put up once in a while. If this is a seal who's totally fine, just resting, it looks healthy, we'll put up a sign saying, hey, it's resting, give it its space. We've already checked on it, it's doing okay. Some of the signs that we have that an animal is doing okay is that they're lifting their head, they're paying attention to noises, and you can kind of tell in this picture that it looks like their eyes are wet around them. Those are hydration rings that the babies have. If they have those wet rings around their eyes, that means they're well taken care of. They are not dehydrated. Their mom is probably still around helping them out. So they don't really need our help. But when those hydration rings go away and then they're not lifting their head or they're just laying flat, that is a sign that they're not feeling well. Most seals will lay on their sides with their head up, kind of like this picture behind me, and their flippers up. We call that the banana pose. So they will lay like that to warm up, and that's totally normal. That is a happy, healthy seal. Now, if they do end up needing care, they will come into the hospital. And the next picture will start to show you how we care for these little ones. So this is a seal pup. Now, seal pups are not as small as you would think. Adult seals are pretty large. So their babies are normally around 25 pounds if they are healthy when they are born. But we see any from about 10 pounds to 20 pounds. We usually get them in when they're not at their full healthy capacity. So they're a little bit smaller. Now, this one is getting its formula and its medicine tubed into its belly. We cannot have them drink out of bottles because a lot of times they're too sick to eat on their own when they first get to us. So this tube is measured and it's slid down into the seal's belly. It's really quick. We can pour the formula and the medicine right in, pull that tube out, and put that seal back in its little home for the night. We do feed these animals 4 or 5 times a day when they're little, and then graduate them up through formula. We will wean them off of that into like a little fish smoothie to get them the taste of fish, and then pieces of fish, and then whole fish, and then live fish. They have to show they can catch live fish, and they have to hit about 50 pounds before they can be successfully released into the ocean. Oh, sorry about that. That's my land seal. So this baby is getting tubed, and it's really fast. When we get good at it, we can do it in 30 seconds. That means it's the least invasive procedure for this animal, and it's the least amount of human time with this animal. We do not want them to get used to us. We do not want them snuggling with us and thinking we are their moms. We make things happen quick, and we shut off connection because we want them to go back out in the wild, and they cannot go back into the wild if they are too attached to humans. Luckily, they are not birds. They don't imprint like a bird will. The babies they tolerate humans, but as they start to get to that point where their body is changing and they're weaning and they're starting to eat fish, they get more aggressive and they start to not like us anymore, which is what we want to see. That is a normal, healthy seal. So if we want to go to the next picture, sometimes these animals have a little bit of a cold or pneumonia, just like us humans can get. So the best way to give them their medication in this instance is we put them in this incubator, and we do a nebulizer treatment. So we will put the medicine into the air for them to breathe. So this one you can see she has a little bit of a runny nose, not feeling the greatest, but her medicine gets put into the air so that she can breathe that in. So we have lots of different equipment we can use for different procedures that these animals are in need of. All right, let's move on to the next picture. Thank you. So our ultimate goal is if an animal is stranded and actually needs help, we will rescue. We will bring into our facilities and care for that animal with the ultimate goal of releasing it safely back into the ocean. Now go ahead and skip ahead there. I want to show you a few of our patients that are pretty memorable. This one, I love him. He was from 2019. This was my first actual response for a baby seal. I went and assessed this animal, and you can tell in that top picture, you can see his hip bones down here. He's very skinny. He was abandoned. He was dehydrated. He was on the verge of not surviving. Now, when we keep them in long-term care and not transport them somewhere else, what we tend to do is the volunteer that rescued that animal is the one that gets to release them. They get to open the gate and send that animal back to its home. And it's very rewarding after all the hard work we put in caring for these animals and watching some not survive. It means so much to us to get to see them go back into the ocean. Now, of course, in the last year, due to COVID, we have not been having public seal releases, but that will change this year. We should have some public releases that we do announce on our social media pages where anyone from the public can join us. Usually we're in the Phippsburg area when we release. Anyone can join us to watch these animals belly bounce back down into the ocean and sometimes go into the ocean for the first time in several months. So it's really exciting, really fun to see. If you're ever interested in that, go ahead and follow us on social media. Go to our website and join our newsletter. It gets sent out when we are hosting those events. So he came in at 16 pounds and he left at 49 pounds in that bottom picture. You can see much healthier, chunky little seal. That's what we want to see. And then our next one, please. I'm going to show you a few of our patients from last year because we had some pretty interesting cases last year. And then I'll show you the few that we have in our care right now. This was our first pup of 2020. So that means she was number 38. We do not name our animals. We give them numbers just for data information. So she was the 38th animal that we responded to this year, but the first one, or last year, but the first one that came into our care. She is covered in that white layer of fur. She was born premature. That coat of fur is called the lanugo coat, and as I mentioned, some seal species are born with it, but harbor seals usually aren't. So she was born a little early, and she was only a day old when we had to collect her. You can see she still has part of her umbilical cord. Now she was stuck in the waves on the shore, and she was exhausted and clearly not doing great, so we did have to act fast on her. So this is what a baby seal looks like when they're super cute and adorable and really fluffy. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. This one was a very interesting case last year. She was the oldest seal we've had in our care. She was probably about 3 or 4 years old. She is a harbor seal. When we responded to her, she was 57 pounds, and she should not have been under 100. You can tell by the humps in that bottom picture, she was very skinny. So we brought her in, we gave her those nebulizer treatments because she did have pneumonia and an upper respiratory infection, all these issues. And we thought, wow, she's very calm, but that's not gonna last. When she starts feeling better, she's gonna get spunkier. But her personality, which is different for all of them, she was the calmest seal we've ever seen. She was just relaxed. She would do funny things. And then when we released her successfully a couple months later, right before the new year, she was almost 130 pounds. You can see that's a healthy, juvenile, almost adult seal. If you go to the next picture, I have a few more of her because she was such an oddball little character. She graduated into our big pool and had 24-hour access to the water. We would throw fish in there for her, and sometimes she would just stick her face in and just look down under the water. She was really goofy. But with her, we get to see how these seals behave as adults. So the next one is all about how they sleep. So there's different ways. They can get out of the water and rest on land and sleep that way. But sometimes they're out to sea for several weeks at a time. So they just kind of bob in the water with their nose out, like you see in a couple of these pictures. And then they are able to hold their breath and go underwater. And she was sleeping underwater for about 20 minutes at a time. And then they'll have to pop up to get her breath. They can, if they're diving for food, they can stay under a little bit longer, but they tend to come up once at least every 20 minutes or so. So this is how they sleep in the water. And we got to really see that with her because she'd already been in the wild. She already knew what to do. She just ended up getting a little sick and wasn't able to recover without any intervention. So let's go ahead and go to the next one. Thank you so much for changing these. This is a great picture of how we keep track of our seals after we release them. We do tag the back flippers of every animal we release. That does not hurt them at all. And that is solely for the basis of if they show up somewhere, we are aware of who it is and which individual it is. So then we can kind of keep track of if they've been spotted or if one comes ashore that's not alive anymore. We know that that is one that has come through our center. And this is helping us to track how successful rehabilitation can be. Also, every once in a while, usually maybe 1 or 2 every summer or every year, get a satellite tag on them. So this one in the picture had a satellite tag. Now these are $3,000 to $5,000, which is why we can't tag every animal, but we tag the ones that we think we're going to get really great information from. So the one that we released, the larger one, she was tagged to learn more about her age class and what they're up to and how far they travel. We had one last year that came into care 2 different times. So we put a tag on, or a tracker on him to see how he did with his second release back into the ocean. And his tag has actually lasted longer than any others, and he's still going strong. He's been all up and down the East Coast and just recently returned to Maine, which is exciting. But this one, as you can see, started out, we released this one in Rhode Island for a few different reasons, but it went down to New York City, or New York, around Long Island. It went out to sea for several weeks, and then all the way up to Nova Scotia, and then out to sea again. And that tracker stopped working, which it's designed to not last forever. We don't want that to bother the animal for too long. So we try to get as much data as we can that way from our animals to learn more about them and where they go post-release. Now also, if we head over to the next one, I have a couple of patients here that I'll show you that were pretty interesting this year as well. These are from the wintertime. This is a harp seal. Look at those eyes. Those big, large eyes help them see really well in the murky water that we have off of our coast here. Now, we can go ahead and skip to the next one. These were successfully rehabilitated and released. And I don't know if you want to try to play this video. I'm not sure if it'll work. It's a little glitchy, but it's working. That's great. So the harp seals, as I told you, are obsessed with snow and ice. So we give them, when they are feeling a lot better, we give them fresh snow every day because that is their natural habitat and what they're used to. It's just like a dog just sticking its head right into the snow. They really love that. Now this one is a gray seal, and this one does have some sound to it. I'm not sure if you can make that work or not, but let's see. Yeah, we're not gonna be able to hear it though. That's okay. They just kind of make barking noises.
You weren't able to hear it?
No.
Okay.
That's okay though. That's okay. If you look on YouTube for Marine Mammals of Maine, all these videos are posted there, so you can see these videos and tons more. But this is a gray seal that we had over the winter. We actually had 4 gray seals come through this winter, and then were successfully released. One was a really interesting case because it did have a major neck wound from getting stuck in some plastic debris. But after a lot of overnight care and critical care, she was released successfully back into the ocean earlier this year. Now let me show you quick some patients that we have in currently. We'll kind of go through these a little quick. So this was our first pup of the year. She was also born early, number 31. She is still in our care right now after she came in early or mid-May. And she has been with us and will most likely be released, hopefully, if all goes well, by the end of the summer. So that's what we hope to do for these pups, is really get them through the first critical few months of their life and then release them, knowing that they're as healthy as can be and hopefully as successful as can be. So this was our first one. This is what she looks like today on the bottom. A very, not so much baby seal anymore, very healthy weanling. And then the next one is our second one that came in. Her name is COA because she came to us from the College of the Atlantic, the Allied Whale organization that responds. She was also born early and was tiny, and she has grown and is super healthy and doing really well. So we're hoping she's on track to be released. And then we have 2 more. These are our original 4. We do have 7 in care right now, but these ones are the ones we've had the longest. This is number 37. He was also born early, that fluffy white coat, and he's very, when they're dry, they look very different from when they're wet. They blend in really well with the rocks when they're all wet, but when they're dry, they're much lighter colored. So he's all dry. He's a little lighter than the other ones. And then the next one is his pool mate. This is 36. So these are the first 4 seals that came in, and they are still here today. And I want to show you really quick some threats that these animals face. Oh, I think I have one more picture of our current patients. Oh, there they are. Just a quick little key picture. So some of the main threats to these animals are those human impacts that I've been discussing, and getting stuck in fishing gear and the plastic that's out in the ocean right now. Poaching isn't as common here as it is on the West Coast and in the northern areas, but pollution, harassment, getting within that 150 feet of that animal is technically harassment, and also boat strikes. So these animals are already born to live in such a challenging place to survive, and now we're adding these other issues for them that they're not quite adjusted to. So some things that we can do to help in our next few things here. So if you follow us on social media, if you're on social media, we are on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, just to stay current with what's happening in the world of marine mammal rescue in the state of Maine. And we post regularly about our current patients, about any events that we're hosting or fundraisers that we're doing, or because we are solely donation based and grant funded, we do a lot of asks for on our Amazon wish list. So on Amazon, through our website, you can find this. We have a whole thing of different items that we need at the hospital to take care of these animals. And sometimes we might run low, so we'll put a post out there saying, hey, we're in critical need of these items if you feel like donating. And there's a wide variety of different priced items for anyone that would like to help out a little bit. Also, we have a seal store. You're not going to be able to buy seals, but you can buy some very cool seal things, items, with different cute designs on them, and all the proceeds go directly to the animals that we're caring for. Also, we do our best to encourage picking up trash, whether you're on the coast or not, doing your best if it's safe to do so, picking up any litter so it's not ending up in the ocean and hurting these animals that we're trying to release back into their home. And also just letting people know, if you have family and friends that like to frequent the coast and the beach, and or have some people visiting, make sure to let them know the law, how far away to stay, who they can contact if they come across something, and just help spread the word a little bit. Now I have one last picture I'll have Allison bring up. Thank you. This is one of our patients in 2018. Up until this year, she was our smallest patient to date. She was about 12 pounds when she came in, but we have a new smallest this year who was 10 pounds when she came in. So this was Preemie, was what we named her. She took a long time to gain the weight that she needed, but she was eventually released on Christmas Eve. It was a great little holiday celebration to send her home. On the bottom is our 24-hour hotline that you can contact, and I encourage people that frequent the coast to put that right into your phone, so you never know when you're going to come across something that you don't have to try to search, like, who do I call, what do I do? You can just put that right in and it's ready to go. Now, I do want to open it up to any questions that anybody might have. If you wanted to put it into the Q&A or the chat, I'd love to answer any questions, anything I missed that you were wondering about. I will also let you know, if you are familiar with us, you may know our largest fundraiser of the year is a 5K run that we run and walk that we host in October normally. We get to occupy Hermit Island in Phippsburg. It's a beautiful location. It's coastal and through the trees sometimes too. A beautiful place. We allow dogs to come and do the walk and run with us. And that's our biggest fundraiser of the year. We weren't able to do last year, but we will be hosting some form of in-person one this year.
Do the numbers that you assign the seals start over every year?
They do, yes. Yep. So we normally respond to about 300 every year. Some years there's way more and some years there's a few less, but it's normally around 300 every year. And the one that was the oldest harbor seal that we had in care, she was number 328 last year, and she was one of the last ones of the year. Awesome. I guess I'll just watch the questions for just a minute. And otherwise, if you don't have any questions, I want to thank you all for joining and learning a little bit about marine mammals and the work going on with them in the state of Maine. I'll stick around. As I mentioned, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know, and I'll do my best to answer them. But otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your night, and thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for the work you do and for coming to tell us about it.
Happy to. Thanks for having us.